Hi, everybody. My name is Anlin Wang. I'm a member of both the Democratic Socialists of America and the No Cold War Collective. Today, we are joined by Seishi Hinada, a national executive member of ZENKO. Welcome, everybody. Today, Hinada-san is going to share with us his perspective and ZENKO's perspective on some recent political developments in Japan. With that, I'll just get right into it. Hinada-san, there have been some major political developments in Japan recently. For the first time since 1955, the Liberal Democratic Party has lost majorities in the lower house last October, and in this past July 20th, lost the majority in the upper house as well. One of the big winners in this July election was the far-right Sanseitō party, inspired by Trump's right-wing populism. At the same time, it also appears that the LDP is likely to stay in power as a minority ruling party. So, first of all, for our viewers, could you briefly introduce the LDP?
Okay, the Liberal Democratic Party was formed in 1955 through the merger of two conservative parties. And since then, it has consistently represented the interests of big business in Japan. Before the war, the economic base of Japan's imperial militarism was made up of the zaibatsu, which were family-controlled corporate conglomerates. You might be familiar with names like Mitsubishi, Mitsui, Sumitomo, and Yasuda. After Japan's defeat in 1945, the Allied occupation general headquarters temporarily broke up the zaibatsu to prevent the revival of Japanese militarism. But by the late 1940s already, they began to restore the zaibatsu as a buffer against the growing influence of communism in the Far East, i.e. from the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China. In the 1950s, the war economy created by the Korean War helped the zaibatsu to recover quickly. Since 1955, the LDP has functioned for decades as a political party that protects the interests of the old zaibatsu and today's business elite. In fact, the LDP lost its power not for the first time. It lost in 1993 and 2009. So ever since 2000s, the LDP has maintained its majority in the Diet by forming a coalition with the centrist Komeito party. But this time, widespread corruption, rising prices, cuts to social security, and general harm to people's livelihoods fueled voters' anger. And LDP and Komeito coalition party were pushed into position as a minority government.
Thank you for that background, Hinada-san. In your view, does the election mark a shift in Japanese politics?
Yes, I think there has been a clear change in Japan, which is similar to what we have seen in Europe and other countries. A very dangerous far-right populist party has clearly emerged. Many voters who said no to the current LDP Komeito government turned their support to right-wing parties like the National Democratic Party and the Sanseitō. The National Democratic Party increased its seats from 5 to 22, and Sanseitō grew sharply from only 1 seat up to 14 seats, you see. Sanseitō promotes a Japan First policy and openly supports exclusionary anti-immigrant positions, just like far-right parties in Europe, such as France's National Rally and Germany's Alternative for Deutschland. They claim that to oppose immigrants is a solution to worsening people's livelihoods and growing inequality, while letting global capitalism off the hook, you see, the real cause of social and economic problems. Sanseitō has proposed, for example, the patients in all end-of-life care, the terminal care, should bear the full cost of medical treatment for themselves. They have talked about cutting the consumption tax just to gain popularity without mentioning how to fund it. And they say nothing about reducing military spending or increasing taxes on the big corporations and high-income earners. Their policies take citizens' dissatisfaction and anger and redirect it toward blaming foreigners and the elderly for problems while excusing large capital. The right wing uses social media to create enemies, organize hatred, and gain support.
Thank you again for
No.
Hinada-san.
Mhm.
I want to ask you about something else as well, which is about the recent tariff news. Despite being one of the United States' strongest and most dependable allies, Japan has still been targeted by Trump for higher tariffs nevertheless, seeming to give some credence to the claim that the United States treats its allies even more dangerously than it treats its friends, than its enemies. And soon after these upper house elections, Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba finalized a deal with the Trump administration, seeming to that in exchange for lowering the tariffs from 25 to 15%, including on the automotive sector, Japan also will be investing up to $550 billion in the United States and opening up its rice market as well. How do ordinary people in Japan view this deal? How does MDS or ZENKO view this deal?
Okay, the LDP Komeito government has repeatedly sent its special envoys to Washington and has promoted the achievement of reaching a 15% agreement as a success. But there is no written agreement as such, and both sides interpret the details in ways that suit them. It has even become clear that there are differences in interpretation between Japan and the United States. So most people feel that while Trump is acting unpredictably as well as preposterously, the current LDP Komeito government has no choice but to follow his demands. There is a sense of sort of half resignation that there is no other way to respond. ZENKO and MDS see Trump's tariff attacks as ultimately a burden on workers and consumers, both in Japan and the US. That is why we believe it is important for workers to unite in solidarity, resist the destruction of our livelihoods, and propose policies for fundamental social change. And at the same time, we must remain very alert to the far-right forces that, in reaction to Trump's tariff attacks, accelerate xenophobia and nationalism to organize more masses. For example, Sanseitō has even recently mentioned independent nuclear armament for Japan. So we must be very careful about this move. Okay.
Thank you. I want to ask you another question. Just recently, we passed August 6th, marking the 80th anniversary since the US bombing of Hiroshima. After its defeat in World War II, Japan became the regional cornerstone for the United States and East Asia. In particular, Okinawa, one of Japan's southernmost islands and closest to Taiwan and China, has been described by the US military as an unsinkable aircraft carrier. How is Japan's role and military posture in the region and the world shifting with the US-led new Cold War against China?
Since the Abe administration in the 2010s, the Japanese government has abandoned its previous stance of exclusively defense-only posture and built a system that allows the exercise of collective self-defense and legally permits preemptive strikes against enemy territory. At the end of March this year, Joint Operations Command for the Ground, Maritime, and Air Self-Defense Forces was established in Tokyo. And at the same time, a U.S. Forces Japan Joint Command was also set up. This move has further advanced preparations for fully integrated operations between Japanese and U.S. forces. Japan has also significantly relaxed its previously strict ban on arms exports and now provides indirect weapon support to conflict areas such as Israel and Ukraine, with the military spending raised to 2% of GDP, the stock prices of defense companies have been surging. We can say that the Japanese economy is rapidly becoming militarized too. In this context, in East Asia, Japan, the US, and South Korea are at the center of large-scale joint military exercises, joined by countries such as the UK, Australia, and France, including NATO and AUKUS members. Next month in September, Japan, the US, and South Korea will conduct the large-scale integrated military exercise Freedom Edge right on China's doorstep. The number of participating troops has nearly doubled over the past 5 years. Military scenarios are being discussed that intentionally accelerate the possibility of a Taiwan contingency or a Korean Peninsula contingency to provoke China and enable military intervention. Some of these scenarios even mention the possible use of nuclear weapons. Currently, the situation in East Asia and the Far East is extremely volatile and could become the flashpoint for the next war, I'm afraid.
Hinada-san, you are also part of ZENKO, a national anti-war and anti-US military base organization in Japan. Could you briefly introduce us to ZENKO and its activities?
ZENKO, National Assembly for Peace and Democracy Japan, was founded in 1970, and this year marks its 55th anniversary. It's a grassroots organization working for peace and against militarism and military bases. Currently, ZENKO has two main areas of activities. The first, of course, is the effort to stop the genocide in Gaza. In particular, we are expanding campaigns to expose and protest the Japanese government's and Japanese companies' complicity in Israel. We work in solidarity with the international BDS movement and with partners in Palestine who are resisting non-violently on the ground. At this summer's ZENKO National Meeting, we passed a resolution to establish an International Joint Action Week this fall. During this week, we plan to coordinate with movements in other countries and carry out focused simultaneous protest actions targeting companies and governments. And the second main area is opposition to the construction of new bases in Okinawa and the militarization of Japan and East Asia more broadly. In 2020, we launched a ZHAP campaign, a ZENKO Henoko Anti-Base Project, initially focusing on stopping the construction of the US military base in Henoko, Okinawa. Since then, the campaign has expanded to oppose not only the Henoko base, but also missile deployments and new ammunition depots across Okinawa and the rest of Japan. We are working in particular with partners from South Korea, Taiwan, and DSA International Committee to build an international network aimed at stopping war from East Asia. As I mentioned earlier, we want to raise the voice from Japan for international solidarity to stop a potential war against China.
Thank you for your insight today, Hinada-san. Are there any final thoughts that you want to leave with us?
Okay. As Anlin-san mentioned earlier, this year marks the 80th anniversary of Japan's defeat in World War II and the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I am from Hiroshima and active in the city. The Hiroshima has a port called Ujina port, which sent out all of Japan's military invasion forces from the late 19th century until World War II. People often talk about only the damage from the atomic bomb, but Hiroshima was also a military hub from which Japan colonized Taiwan, the Korean Peninsula, and invaded China and other Asian countries. The legacy of these wars of aggression has still not been properly addressed. Individual compensation has not yet been given to former conscripted workers of companies like Mitsubishi and Japan Steel, or to victims of military sexual violence. Meanwhile, the government and companies like Mitsubishi are once again preparing for war against China and continuing their complicity in Israel. Such injustice must end. I hope to join hands with comrades in the international anti-war community and expand efforts to stop war from East Asia. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Hinada-san, for your time and insight. And as you said, we look forward to joining hands with you as well.